Mr. King, Ms. Nelson, Ms. Higgs, and Ms. Spengler. And the people are represented by Mr. Brockler, Mr. Orman, Ms. Pearson, Mr. Edson, and Ms. Tish McGuire. We are outside the presence of the jury. Are the parties ready for the jury? Ms. Pearson?
Your Honor, I have two court exhibits to tender to the court first. One is C-TR25, the theater plan from yesterday, and the other is C-TR24, a diagram from a victim.
All right, the theater plan is the one that's the one that we redacted, and so you marked as a court trial exhibit the one that was not redacted, the original, correct?
That's correct.
All right. You may approach. Just stand there to my staff, please, or just put them on the table there. Actually, turn them the other way, upside down. Thank you. All right. Are the people otherwise ready for the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready for the jury?
Yes.
Okay, let's bring the jury in, please. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury's back in the courtroom. Welcome back, members of the jury. Everybody doing okay? Yes. All right. Other than the rain we're having to put up with. Okay, the prosecution may call its next witness at this time, please.
The people call Detective Todd Fredrickson.
Morning. Morning. Could I have you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
Excuse me. Good morning, Todd. Michael Fredrickson. First is T-O-D-D. Middle is M-I-C-H-A-E-L. Last is F-R-E-D-E-R-I-C-K-S-E-N.
Ms. Pearson, you may proceed.
Detective Fredrickson, who are you employed by?
With the Aurora Police Department, ma'am.
How long have you worked for them?
A total of 19 years, and the last 12 of those have been as a detective.
And are you also in the major crime unit?
Yes, ma'am. That's my current assignment.
Were you asked to respond to the shooting on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, I was assigned as an assisting detective.
What were you asked to do that night?
Initially, I was asked to go to a couple of hospitals and make contact with some of the victims.
Did you do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ultimately get to know Denise Trainum Axelrod?
Yes.
As a result of that, did you go to the hospital on August 23rd of 2012 when she had surgery?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 326. Do you recognize this item?
I do.
What is it?
It is the bullet fragment that was extracted from Denise Trainum Axelrod.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 326.
Any objection?
May I have just a moment?
Yes.
Objection.
All right, without objection, P-TR-326 is admitted.
Was this if you could hold it up so that if it's possible for the jury to see it, is this a fragment that was removed on August 23rd of 2012?
It is.
And can you describe it a little bit for us, the size of it?
Size-wise, it appears to be perhaps a centimeter plus across. It appears to be at least part of the tip of a bullet. It's also got some tissue and then some, it appears to be a little piece of shrapnel that's embedded in the tissue.
Thank you. I don't have any additional questions.
Do you have any cross-examination, Ms. Spengler?
I do not, thank you.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions, so may this witness be released from his subpoena?
Your Honor, we will leave him subject to recall.
Okay. All right, sir, you're done for now, but you may be recalled, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Call your next witness, please.
The people call Officer Ben Holston.
May we approach while the witness is approaching?
Yes. Would counsel please approach again? Members of the jury, there is a matter that I need to take up outside your presence. And so we're going to go ahead and take a short break. Don't go too far, please. We'll hopefully come get you in about 10 minutes or so, all right? Please remember that my advisements apply during this break. Thank you. All right, the record should reflect that the jury has now exited the courtroom. Everyone may be seated. As I mentioned on the bench, at the bench conference, there is a note from juror 267 indicating that she knows Officer Ben Holston from the past at Columbine. So I'm going to have her brought in so we can talk to her. That was with the agreement of counsel. Would you please bring juror 267? Bring in juror 267. Thank you. Record should reflect that juror 267 is now back in the courtroom. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I received a note indicating that you apparently know Officer Ben Holston from the past at Columbine. Is that correct?
At Columbia Middle School.
Oh, Columbia. I misread that. Okay. And tell me about your knowledge of this officer.
He was just assigned to our school, and I don't remember when. It was a long time ago, but I did recognize the name. So,
By the way, the record should reflect that we're outside the presence of the witness as well right now. How long ago, approximately, can you give me an estimate about how long ago you think you met him or saw him or knew him?
I believe it was before 2012, but we have them coming and going, so I really don't know.
And this is at a medical school?
Middle school.
Middle school? That's the middle school where you work?
Yes.
And how often do you think you've seen him?
Oh, they just come in once in a while if they're assigned to our school. Sometimes in the mornings, and they are assigned to different schools also. So wherever they're needed, they kind of go. So just in passing.
Have you ever talked to him?
I've spoken with him.
How many times?
I've kidded with him. Just in passing. I don't know how many times, but I wouldn't say on a daily basis.
Okay. Anything about the contact that you've had with this officer that you think would affect your ability to be a fair and impartial juror in this trial?
No.
Anything about your contacts with this officer at Columbia Middle School that you think would affect your ability to assess his credibility?
No.
And do you think you would be able to assess his credibility in the same manner that you would assess the credibility of any other witness?
Yes.
Notwithstanding your contact with this officer, are you going to be able to assess his credibility consistent with my instructions?
Yes.
Do you have any other concerns that you want to talk to me about?
No.
Approximately how many years or how many months or how long has this officer been assigned to Columbia Middle School, as far as you know?
He might have been assigned a year at most.
So is it fair to say that to the extent you've had any contact with him, it's been over a period of 1 year?
Possibly, yes.
And you think it was before 2012?
Yes.
Do you know whether it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? I mean, can you give me some estimate?
I don't know, because we've had so many officers come in there. say more than 5
More than
years
five,
ago.
more than 5 years ago. And you're shaking your head, yes.
Yes.
Okay, you're nodding your head, yes, I should say. Okay. And can you give me an estimate as to how many times you've had contact with him?
Usually when he comes in, when the officers come in, they just say good morning to all of us, and then they go into their little office, and it's just kind of a passing, no major conversations.
You haven't had any major conversations with him,
No,
other than just to greet or to joke in
and
passing,
acknowledge, yes.
acknowledge, something along those lines?
Yes.
You've never had a single conversation with him?
No, not about anything specific. Just how are you doing and getting around.
Okay. And you said that he's not there every day, and he is there some days, but not other days. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Over the period of that 1 year when you think you saw him at different times, approximately how many times do you think you saw him? I mean, was it on a weekly basis? Was it every 2 weeks or so? I'm just asking for an estimate.
I don't know. We're so busy in there. I would say maybe 2 times a week, maybe.
Maybe a
He
couple of
would
times.
come in because they also go to other schools that they're assigned to, wherever they're needed. If we have a situation going on, we always try to get a hold of the officer that is assigned to our school.
So a couple of times a week
Probably, yes.
for a period of about a year.
I'm guessing yes.
Okay, well, don't guess, but give me your best estimate. Is that your best estimate?
Approximately a year.
Approximately a year. All right, and during that time, all those contacts were only in terms of greeting him, acknowledging him, or perhaps joking with him in passing, but nothing where you're having a one-on-one conversation with him about anything. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Anything about these contacts that you think will put any pressure on you in terms of your verdict or any decisions in this case?
No.
And do you feel like if at the end of the case, well, let me rephrase that. Anything about these contacts that you think will make you, will influence you in terms of feeling like you have to justify your decision at the end of the case to him if you saw him again?
No.
And you haven't seen him again since about 5 years ago. Is that about right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Let me have you step out.
Okay.
And then we'll proceed. Okay. So just wait for us for a moment, please. The record should reflect that juror number 267 has stepped out of the courtroom. Are there any other questions that the people want me to ask her?
No, Your Honor.
Any other record that you want me to make?
No, Your Honor.
Any requests that you're making at this time?
No, Your Honor.
Same questions for the defense. Mr. King, are there any other questions that you want me to ask this juror?
No, Your Honor.
Is there any other record that you would like me to make?
No, thank you.
Any action that you're asking me to take?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. All right, let's bring the jury in, please. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury is back in the courtroom now. All right, Ms. Pearson, you may call your witness.
Officer Ben Holston.
You solemnly swear or affirm on the penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
Benjamin Holston. It's actually Benjamin J. Holston, BenjaminJayHolston.
Ms. Pearson, you may proceed.
Officer Holston, who do you work for?
City of Aurora, I'm a police officer,
How long have you worked there?
approximately 9 years.
On July 31st of 2012, did you go to the Century 16 Theater and pick up a fragment?
I did.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 998. Do you recognize this item?
I do.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 998.
Is there any objection?
Your Honor, can we approach briefly?
Yes. So the exhibit is admitted. P-DR-998 is admitted.
Officer Holston, where was this fragment when you collected it?
This fragment was near the ticket booth of the theater. It was at the bottom of a set of stairs by an ATM at the south door of like the ticket booth.
So if you were to walk in the front lobby of the theater, is the ticket booth to your right?
It is.
And then where is this ATM machine in relationship to that?
The ticket booth would be to the right. The ATM machine is the end of the ticket booth at the bottom of a set of stairs. And the fragment was next to that south door of the ticket booth.
Thank you. I don't have any additional questions for you.
Ms. Spengler, do you have any cross-examination?
No, thank you.
All right, and the jury does not have any questions, so may this witness be released from his subpoena, Ms. Pearson?
He may, Your Honor. I would ask to publish the two fragments to the jury, if I
All
might.
right, is there any objection to the witness being released from his subpoena at this time?
No.
All right, without objection, sir, you're done. Thank you. And the request to publish is granted. Ms. Sagal, thank you. The record should reflect that those two exhibits have now been published to the jury, and that's exhibits P-TR-326 and P-TR-998. You may call your next witness, please.
We'll call Mark Magruder.
Good morning, sir. If I could have you raise your right hand for me so I can administer an oath. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
Mark James Magruder, M-A-R-K, J-A-M-E-S, M-A-G-R-U-D-E-R.
All right, Mr. Edson, you may proceed with your direct examination.
Sir, what do you do for a living?
I'm an MSF rider coach,
What is an MSF rider coach?
Motorcycle Safety Foundation motorcycle instructor.
Are you familiar with Iron Buffalo Motorcycle Riding School?
Yes,
Are you an instructor at that particular school?
yes.
How long have you been an instructor at Iron Buffalo?
4 seasons,
How long are seasons?
from around February to November.
Were you an instructor for Iron Buffalo Motorcycle School in June of 2012?
Yes.
How does one become an instructor for a motorcycle riding school?
You take a 2-week, 10-day course where you are evaluated by other instructors. If you pass that 10-day course, you're then certified by, again, MSF. And then you also need to be certified by the state of Colorado, the MOST program. You get a certificate from them, and then you are available to any of the classes in the state.
And did you have such certifications back in June of 2012?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Are you familiar with Iron Buffalo's basic motorcycle rider course?
Yes.
What is that basic motorcycle rider course?
It's a 2-day class. It's geared towards students who have minimal knowledge of riding. It's about 60% riding and 40% classroom.
I would like to draw your attention to June 23rd and June 24th of 2012. Did you host a basic motorcycle rider course for Iron Buffalo back during that 2-day time period?
Yes.
Were you an instructor of that 2-day basic motorcycle rider course for Iron Buffalo?
Yes.
Did you have a student by the name of James Holmes in that June 23rd and 24th, 2012 basic motorcycle rider course?
Yes.
Do you remember where James Holmes sat in your class during that 2-day time period?
I believe he was at the northeast table.
Did you have interactions with James Holmes?
Yes.
Do you see James Holmes in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Tell the judge where he's located and describe something that he's wearing.
A blue and white pinstripe dress shirt.
Your Honor, please let the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant subject to cross-examination.
The record will so reflect.
Do students have to sign any sort of waivers to participate?
Yes.
Please describe the components of the basic motorcycle riding course. What do the students have to do?
Three things to get their certification. The first one is perfect attendance and participation. Second is passing a knowledge written test. And the third is passing a skills writing test.
As an instructor, are you an individual who grades whether an individual passes or does not pass?
Yes.
Was that your job back during the June 23rd and 24th, 2012 class period that the defendant attended?
Yes.
Must students attend both days in order to successfully complete the course?
Yes.
You indicated students must also participate. What do you mean by participate?
Part of the learning process in the classroom is breaking up the students into groups. Makes it easier to move through the workbook and for them questions to be answered quickly. So the groups are broken up, and then those students then only answer specific questions that are pertinent to the curriculum.
If a student does not participate in the groups as you're talking about, does that have an impact on whether they successfully completed the course?
Yes.
How so?
If we felt that someone was not participating or that there was an issue, we would coach them out of the 2 days.
How would you describe the mannerisms of the defendant during the 2-day course of June 23rd and 24th, 2012?
Nondescript.
What do you mean by that?
We tend to remember classes that there are issues with or there are problems with. There was nothing about this class that sticks out in my mind as being unusual or difficult.
Does that include the defendant and his participation in the class?
Yes.
What is the knowledge portion of the basic writer course? What does that entail?
Each student is given a workbook. We then go through that workbook again in these groups. At the end of the second day, there is then a 50-question multiple choice test that is given, much like would be given for a driver's license. And if the students pass that, then they met one of the criteria.
Is it a pass-fail test?
Yes.
Are you involved as an instructor in the grading of such knowledge portion, the written
Yes.
test? Did the defendant pass the knowledge portion of your test?
Yes.
When is the test given between the 2 days, the first or second day?
Second day towards the end of the second day usually. Sometimes it changes depending upon weather and other factors, but if it's a normal class, it would be towards the end of the second day.
Must a student up to that point of the knowledge examination participate to even get to set for that exam?
Yes.
Must the student attend the course in its entirety up to that point?
Asked and answered.
In order, if I could finish the question, Judge.
Objection. Asked and answered.
The question has been asked and answered, so the objection is sustained under Rule 611A.
Describe, if you would please, the third component. I think you said skills.
At about the middle of the second day, again, if things have gone according to Hoyle, there is a 4-part writing skills evaluation that the students take.
Must the student participate and attend in order to be allowed to participate in that aspect of your course?
Yes.
Is that, again, towards the end?
It's about noon to 2 o'clock on the second day.
Is that before or after the written section?
Before.
Did the defendant successfully complete the skills portion of your course?
Yes.
Based upon all three of the contents of your course, did the defendant successfully complete that basic writer's course in your opinion?
Yes.
Just going to have one moment, please.
Yes, you may.
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
All right, any cross-examination, Mr. King?
No, thank you.
All right. The jury may have some questions for you. Give us a moment, please. Thank you. Thank you. Would counsel please approach? Mr. Edson, may this witness be released from his subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. Call your next witness, please.
Haley Hensley.
Good morning. Could I have you raise your right hand so that I can administer an oath? You solemnly swear or affirm, under penalty of law, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
Haley Marie Hensley, H-A-I-L-E-E, Marie, M-A-R-I-E, Hensley, H-E-N-S-L-E-Y.
All right. Ms. Tish-McGuire, you may proceed with your direct examination. And Ms. Hensley, I'll ask you to speak into the microphone. So if you could move the microphone closer to your mouth, please, so that we can all hear you, okay? Thank you. Ms. Tish-McGuire, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Hensley.
Morning.
Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th, 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes.
Right? And did that go into the early morning of July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Could you please tell the jury about what you remember from the day of July 19th prior to going to the movie theater that night?
Before going to the movies, my best friend, Kaylin, asked me to come over to her house and help babysit Veronica.
Did you guys spend the day with Veronica?
Yeah, we spent the day.
Right? At what point in time did you guys decide to go to the movies?
It was when Veronica's mom, Ashley, and Kaylin's cousin, Jameson, returned to pick Veronica up. And Jameson was the one who suggested going to the movie.
What time did you go to the movie theater that night?
We went to the movies and bought our tickets before, and then we left again to do a few errands. And I don't really know what time that was.
All right. What did you do when you got back to the movie theater that night?
We first, found seats, and then me, Kaylin, and Veronica went to the arcade for a while.
What did you do in the arcade?
We just played some games.
What else did you do while you were waiting for the movie to begin that night?
Me and Kaylin went to the bathroom, and we saw someone we knew from our middle school, so we ran into her.
Do you know the name of that person?
Her name was Peyton Brown.
What else do you remember about that evening?
After that, we went back to the theater and saw someone else we knew, but we didn't know if he knew us. So we kind of tried to get him to recognize us, but he didn't.
Where did you find seats that night in the theater?
It was the third row of the stadium seating, 2 seats in from the right side.
Do you recall the order in which you were seated?
Yeah, it was me, Kaylin, Veronica, Ashley, Jameson.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1133.
Yes.
Haley, do you recognize that document?
Yes.
All right. And does that fairly and accurately represent where you were seated in the movie theater on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask for the admittance of People's Exhibit 1133.
Is there any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-1133 is admitted and may be published.
Thank you. Could I please have 1133? All right, now there's a mouse in front of you, in front of that computer. Let's see if it moves at all. Okay, perfect. All right, if you could point out on your diagram there where exactly you were seated and let the jury know the order of your seats. It's a little sensitive.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, this is where I was sat, and then Kaylin is here. Veronica, Ashley, Jameson.
All right. Thank you very much. How old were you on the night of July 19th, 2012?
13 years old.
All right. What happened during the movie that night, Miss Hensley?
Well, the movie began, and I don't exactly know how far into the movie, but the first thing I remember was seeing a canister of some sort go across the theater diagonally.
Now, if this is a movie theater screen, where did that canister start and where did it land?
It began like in the front corner area, and then it came that way to the back corner.
Right, so is that the right front
Yeah,
corner?
the right, and then it ended in the left.
What happened what did you do when that canister went across the theater?
It was just kind of confusing. At first, it didn't like register as a danger to me, and I don't think it did to too many other people.
What do you remember after that canister going across the theater?
After that, Kaylin pulled me down to the ground of the theater.
At this point, are you starting to wonder if there's some danger in the theater?
Yeah. At this point, I was a little skeptical.
What do you remember after Kaylin pulled you down?
I remember a distinct smell of smoke or some kind of gas. I wasn't very sure. And then I remember loud popping sounds that sounded like gunshots.
Could you describe for the jury how your bodies were on the ground?
I was partially laying on top of Kaylin, and I was kind of diagonally, so I could see kind of very obscuredly through the seats in front of me.
How much of a space did you have for the seats that were in front of you to see through?
Not very much. I would say that much.
And if the record could reflect that the witness is holding up her hands were about 3 to 4 inches apart.
Okay.
What could you see through the seats at that time?
I could see a portion of the screen and the exit door that was in the front right of the theater.
Did you notice anything near that exit door at the front right of the theater?
I believe that I saw a figure come in through that door, or was standing near the door, I should say.
How would you describe that figure to the jury?
Dressed in all black, really, probably wearing a helmet of some sort.
Anything else that you remember about that figure?
Not too much, no.
Did you see that figure actually shooting anyone?
No.
Okay. Anything else you remember about that figure at all?
No.
So you're on the ground, and you're partially covering, you're on top of Kaylin.
Yes.
And you're seeing that through the theater. Are you hearing gunfire?
Yes, I am.
Could you describe for the jury what you heard?
It was just loud popping sounds. It was similar to gunshots that you would hear in a movie. I would compare it.
What are you thinking while you're on the ground?
The only thing I was thinking was to get out of the theater.
Why'd you want to do that?
Because I had realized that it was real and people were getting hurt.
Could you tell what was happening to the people that you were with that night?
No, I didn't notice anything until after the gunshots had stopped.
So what point had the gunshot stop that you remember?
I don't really have much sense of how much time was passing. I don't know, it could have been a while or it could have not been a while. It's hard to say.
Were you on the ground the entire time you heard gunshots?
Yes, I was on the ground.
What did you do after you were on the ground for a while?
Well, the next thing I remember was the gunshots stopping, and I think I remember a figure leaving the theater through the same exit door.
And can you describe what you saw for the jury?
It was pretty much the same, all black, maybe in a helmet. I didn't really see too much.
Did you hear any shooting after that point?
No.
What do you remember after that?
After that, I remember me and Kaylin standing up, and Kaylin reached for my phone to get a hold of the police.
Did you see anything else when you stood up?
I saw, I didn't really see too many people because I imagined they were crouching over people who had been hurt. And I saw a man closer to the front row gurgling like blood.
Did you see Ashley at that point in time?
No, I did not see Ashley or Veronica at that time.
Did you see Jameson?
I saw Jameson. He was sitting up, and I noticed that his face was bleeding. And I didn't know. I assumed he had been shot.
What happened after the 911 call that you remember?
After the 911 call, the police showed up and escorted me and Kaylin out of the theater.
How'd you get out of the theater that night?
We went out of the exit door in the front right of the theater.
And at this time, with the court's permission, I would ask Ms. Hensley to approach the 3D model and show the jury where she exited the theater.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And there's a cordless microphone up there, Haley, if you could grab that. And turn that on for me, too. All right, I'm going to ask you to stay up here with me so we don't block the jury too much. All right, if you could first show the jury where you were seated that night, if you could approximately point to those seats for the jury.
I believe I was here.
Okay, and could you describe for the jury the order in which you were seated?
This would be me, Kaylin, Veronica, Ashley, Jameson.
Right, and where was it that you first saw the figure that you recall?
It was closer to over here by the door.
All right, and it's not the only place that you saw the shooter?
Yes.
All right, and could you describe for the jury where you saw that canister go?
It began right down here, and it came up this way and ended up here.
Could you also describe for the jury where it was that you saw that figure leave the theater?
Again, it was out this exit door here.
All right, and I know it's sometimes hard to estimate distances, but if you could use this kind of courtroom as an example, how far away do you think that figure was from you when you saw them leave the theater?
I would say somewhere behind that pillar, about.
So that's about how far away the shooter was from you?
Yeah.
Now, where were you able to leave the theater?
We came down these stairs and out that door.
All right, thank you. You can go back up to the witness stand and take your seat. What happened after you left the theater?
After we left the theater, me and Kaylin sat on the curb that was outside of that exit door.
How long did you sit on the curb outside?
I don't really have any estimates of time. It was kind of chaotic.
Were you able to leave the theater that evening, the theater parking lot that evening?
Yes, it began, a female officer approached me and Kaylin and escorted us to a parked car and told us to crouch behind it.
Did you do that?
Yes, we did.
Were you eventually able to leave the theater parking lot?
Yes, after we were crouched by the car, we were taken to another car that was running where there was just people, I don't really know. They just looked like civilians. And then a construction worker who was working on the road at the time came over to us and took us across the street to the bus stop where Kaylin's dad, Sean, met up with us.
did Kaylin's dad take you to your parents?
Yes, Kaylin's dad drove me down the street to where my mom was parked.
What did you notice about your body when you got home?
When I got home, I realized, at first I thought it was just like a spatter of blood on my right shin, but it wouldn't like wash off. So it was shrapnel in my leg.
Did you notice anything else about your body?
I also noticed a gash on my left upper thigh on the back of it.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 2019 and 2020.
Yes.
Ms. Hensley, do you recognize People's Exhibits 2019 and 2020?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately represent the injuries you sustained on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I would move for the admission of People's Exhibits 2019 and 2020.
Ms. Spengler, do you have any objection?
No objection.
Okay, without objection, P-TR-2019 and 2020 are admitted and may be published.
Thank you. If I could please have 2019. All right, what does this picture depict?
This is a picture of my left shin where the shrapnel was lodged.
Right, and did you actually physically see the pieces of metal that were in your leg?
Yes, my mom removed some of the shrapnel, and later I got it removed at the hospital as well.
What hospital did you go to?
Aurora South.
What day did you go to the hospital?
July 20th, 2012.
Right, if I could please have 2020. Right, and could you tell the jury about what this picture is?
This is the picture of the gash on the back of my upper left thigh.
Right, did you also sustain that on July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Do you have any cross-examination, Ms. Spengler?
No. Thank you.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions, so may this witness be released from her subpoena?
Your Honor, thank you.
Objection?
No objection.
All right, thank you. You may call your next witness, please.
Faye Borges, please.
Good morning. Good morning. Solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Please be seated. You can hand me those. Thank you. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
Faye, F-A-Y-E, middle initial S, last name Borquez, B-O-R-Q-U-E-Z.
Ms. Pearson, you may proceed with your direct examination.
Thank you. Ms. Borges, who do you work for?
I work for the Aurora Police Crime Lab.
What do you do for them?
I'm a CSI. I'm the person that documents crime scenes via photographs, evidence collection, that sort of thing.
How long have you worked at the Aurora Police Department?
Over 25 years.
Did you participate as a CSI in response to the shooting at the Century 16 Theater in July of 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
What did some of your duties consist of?
Primarily, right after it happened, I went to autopsies, and then later on, I also processed additional evidence that was collected.
So did you attend autopsies?
Yes, I did.
How many autopsies were performed?
Well, I did 6, and then one of my coworkers did an additional 6.
Was there more than one coroner doing autopsies?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know who the coroners were?
We had Kelly Lear and Dr. Doberson.
Whose autopsies did you work with one of the coroners doing autopsies, and did a different CSI work with the other coroner?
That's correct.
Which coroner did you work with?
Dr. Doberson.
What was your job at the autopsy?
Basically what we do at any autopsy is we take photographs as the autopsy proceeds, and then if we need to collect evidence, we do that as well.
And for purposes today, so that everyone knows, I'm not going to introduce any photographs through you, but I'm going to introduce the things that you collected at the autopsy.
Okay.
Do you recall whose autopsy was first that you attended?
Jessica Galway, I believe it's pronounced.
Do you know what time that autopsy was?
I believe we did that one around 10 in the morning.
Could it have been around 8:45 in the morning?
Sure.
Do you know what day that was?
That was on the 20th.
I am going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, and 106. Do you recognize these items?
Yes, ma'am.
Are these items that you collected during the autopsy of Jessica Gowie?
That's correct.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 99 through 106 inclusive.
Is there any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No.
Without objection, P-TR-99 through 106 inclusive are admitted.
Could you turn to these individually and tell us what they are?
Number 99 is a lead fragment. $100 is a lead fragment. 101 is a lead fragment. What is this one? 102 is a lead fragment. 103 is a conical copper fragment. 104 is a copper fragment. 105 is a conical lead fragment. And 106 is a conical lead fragment.
And were all of those items removed from Jessica Gowie's body during the autopsy that occurred on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you do another autopsy on July 20th?
Yes.
Which one was next? Whose
I
body
believe it was Alexander Boyk. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Was that in the afternoon?
Yes.
I'm going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 95, 97, and 98. I'm sorry, let me correct that. I'm going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 96, 97, and 98. Do you recognize those items?
Yes, I do.
Are those items that were collected from the autopsy of Alexander Boyk?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 96, 97, and 98.
Is there any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No.
Without objection, P-TR-96, 97, and 98 are admitted.
Could you tell us again, looking at these, what each of these exhibits is?
The first, which is 96, is an envelope containing 5 pellets. 97 is a copper fragment, and that was collected from his T-shirt. And 98 is also a copper fragment, also collected from his T-shirt.
Did you do attend a third autopsy on July 20th of 2012? Was that for Matthew McQuinn?
Yes, it was.
Did that begin in the late afternoon of July 20th?
Yeah, I believe 4:45, I think.
I'm going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibits 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, and 114. Do you recognize these items?
Yes, I do.
Are these items that you collected from the body of Matthew McQuinn during his autopsy on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, and 114.
Ms. Spengler, do you have any objection?
No.
Without objection, P-TR-109 through 114 inclusive are admitted.
Turning first to People's Exhibit 109, could you please tell us what that is?
This is a spent bullet.
110,
110 is a lead fragment.
111,
111 is a copper fragment.
112,
Is a copper fragment.
113,
It's another copper fragment.
and 114.
114 is a movie theater ticket stub from The Night Rises.
Was that taken off of Matt McQuinn?
Yeah, that was out of his pants pockets.
Did you do any other autopsies on July 20th?
No, ma'am.
Did you return on Saturday, July 21st of 2012 to continue the autopsies?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall whose you did first on the morning of Saturday, July 21st?
Rebecca Wingo.
I'm going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibits 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, and 123. Do you recognize all of these items?
Yes, I do.
Are these items that you collected from the body of Rebecca Wingo during the autopsy on July 21st of 2012?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, and 123.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-116 through 123 are admitted.
Turning first to People's Exhibit 116, could you tell us what that is?
That is an envelope with 4 pellets in it.
Are those shotgun pellets?
Yes.
117?
117 is a lead fragment.
Is it an extremely small fragment?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you describe what kind of size of a fragment we're looking at in that exhibit?
It's probably about 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter. And 1 millimeter is going to be about the width of your fingernail. That gives you an idea how small it is.
118, please.
118 is also a lead fragment.
119.
Another lead fragment.
120.
Lead fragment.
121.
121 is going to be a copper conical fragment.
122.
Is a copper fragment, excuse me.
And 123.
Is also a copper fragment.
Following Ms. Wingo's autopsy, did you do another autopsy on July 21st?
Yes, I did.
Whose was the next?
Gordon Cowan, I believe is
Gordon Cowden?
Cowden, yes.
Do you recall what time of day it was that you did that autopsy?
I believe he was in the afternoon also.
During that autopsy, did you collect any fragments or bullets from his body?
No, he had none in his body.
Was he a gunshot victim?
That's what I would interpret it, yes.
But there were no fragments or bullets left in his body.
Correctly, it traversed his entire body.
Did you do a 6th autopsy on July 21st?
Yes, I did.
And was that Alexander Teves?
Yes.
Do you recall when you did that on July 21st?
That would have been in the middle of the afternoon.
I'm going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 126, 127, 128, 130, 131, 132, 133, 134, 135, 136, and 137.
Can I take a look at the envelopes?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just, let me take those back again. Failed to show them to the defense.
Objection to these?
Okay, with that, are you moving the admission, Ms. Pearson?
Yes, Your Honor, I am, I am moving for the admission of all of those.
All right, without objection, P-TR-126 through 128 inclusive are admitted, as are P-TR-130 through 137 inclusive.
Turning first to People's Exhibit 126, could you tell us what that is?
126 is a conical copper fragment,
People's Exhibit 127,
is a copper fragment,
People's Exhibit 128,
is a copper fragment,
130,
is a conical lead fragment,
131,
is a lead fragment,
132,
is a lead fragment,
133,
is a lead fragment,
134,
is a lead fragment,
135,
is a lead fragment,
136,
is a lead fragment,
and 137.
is a copper fragment.
And were all of those items that were removed from Alexander Teague's body at his autopsy on July 21st of 2012?
That's correct.
Now, following your attendance at the autopsies in July of 2012, did you have other duties that you did in relationship to the theater shooting?
Yes, ma'am.
On August 3rd of 2012, were you involved in photographing and processing the defendant's car?
Yes, ma'am.
Had it been towed to an evidence bay at that time?
Yes, it had.
And is that where you photographed and searched it for the items that were still within it?
That's correct.
I'm going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 2670, 2671, 2672, 2673, 2679, 2681, 2678, 2687, 2689, 2688, and 2693. Do you recognize all of those photographs?
Yes, ma'am, I took these photographs.
And do they fairly and accurately represent what you observed when you searched the defendant's car on August 3rd of 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 2670 to 2673, 2678 to 2679, 2681, 2687 to 2689, and 2693.
Any objection?
Further objection to 2681 and 2687. No objection to the remainder.
Can I see those, please? Thank you. Thank you. All right, for the reasons stated in my previous ruling, I think it was Order D, amended Order D-98B, Exhibits P-TR-2681 and 2687 are admitted. The other exhibits are admitted without objection, and they may all be published.
Could I have 2670, please? What are we looking at in this photograph?
This is the defendant's vehicle, driver's side.
2671,
Front of the vehicle.
2672,
Passenger side of the vehicle.
2673,
In the rear of the vehicle.
2679,
It's the VIN number.
2681,
That's looking in through the front driver's door.
2678,
That's looking onto the driver's seat.
what all is on the driver's seat?
You're going to be looking at metal spikes. There's 8 of them, and then we have some duct tape and vehicle registration and sunglasses.
2687,
And that is the hatch, or underneath the hatch.
what items do we see in there?
You can see tennis shoes, some plastic bags, snow scraper.
2689,
And that's a close-up of the tennis shoes. You can see black flip-flops and a pair of goggles.
2688,
And that's the rear seat.
is the seat at this time folded up?
The driver's seat is folded forward so you could get the photograph up. The back seat is in its original position.
And 2693,
And that is a black knit cap that is on the center console hump of the back.
now in addition to taking photographs of the car, did you also collect items from the car?
Yes, we did.
Ms. Pearson, please let me know when it's a good time to take our morning break. All right, why don't we do that? Members of the jury, it's about 10 after 10. Let's go ahead and take our morning break at this time. Please keep in mind that my advisements apply during this break, and so you have to follow each and every one of them, please. Enjoy your break. Thank you. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom now. Please be seated, everyone. And the witness may go on break. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that with respect to People's Exhibits 2681 and 2687, the basis for the objection that I previously addressed was the skull cover on the gear shift, right?
That's right.
Okay. I just want to make a record that in both of these pictures, you can barely see the skull cover on the gear shift. It's hard to make out unless you know what it is ahead of time or unless you're looking right at it. Neither one is a close-up of the gear shift. Same thing with other pictures that have been admitted that show the gear shift. My recollection of those other pictures that have been admitted is that it's hard to make out the skull cover and the gear shift because none of the pictures was a close-up of that gear shift. At least my recollection is that in all those pictures, you almost had to know ahead of time what was on the gear shift to know that it was a skull cover on there. In terms of an issue that came up yesterday, Investigator Eliason, it occurred to me last night that in addition to not having him wear any kind of identification that would show that he works for the DA's office, in the event that he ends up testifying, that also I should caution the parties not to mention his employment in referring to any reports that he may have written. So, for example, if an expert is being questioned and the expert is asked about having been interviewed by Investigator Eliason, the expert should be forewarned not to mention his employment. So if you would talk to your witnesses, please, and instruct them accordingly, I would appreciate that. Again, if at some point you think this is going to come up, I want you to bring this up to my attention outside the presence of the jury. Okay, Mr. King?
I apologize, Judge. I don't mean to interrupt the court, but I just wanted to point out that from my perspective, I don't think that's going to be a workable or possible solution. And I can give you an example of why I think that, if you like. For example, when the prosecution met with some of the expert witnesses, court-appointed experts in the case, our experts in the case, Mr. Eliason at times was the investigator who was present and took notes and wrote reports about the content of those interviews. Those reports were then transmitted to the experts who disagreed with what Mr. Eliason wrote in his report about that interview. We're going to have to talk about those disagreements, and I don't think that we can talk about them out of the context of Mr. Eliason being a witness who works for one of the parties. So I just don't see how we're going to be able to, for example, the expert says, I met with the district attorneys and their investigator took notes and wrote a report, and we're then contesting the contents of that report because the inference would be that the report is biased in some way because of the employment of Mr. Eliason. Does that make sense, Your Honor?
That makes sense. So you don't think it would be sufficient to say or to have a reference to an investigator, a law enforcement investigator? You think it has to be mentioned specifically that this person is employed by the DA's office?
I'm not trying to predict the future, but I'm thinking that that's probably the way it will work out, Your Honor, that it will come out at some point necessarily.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that that's the case. Again, if the issue arises, please raise it with me outside the presence of the jury. It seems to me that everything you said is accurate, and I had thought about everything you said except his employment. I think what's relevant is that he's a law enforcement investigator, and I think the same argument related to bias can be made with respect to any report that he wrote, whether he's employed by the DA's office or he's employed by another law enforcement agency. I think what's important is the contents of the report and the fact that he's with law enforcement in general, as opposed to specifically with this office. But if the issue arises, then I'll address it at that point. We don't need to address it right now.
Understood.
And then at that point, I will also address any other requests that the defense may have to release juror number 557. Yesterday, I denied the request because it was rendered moot by the agreement of the parties, which made it unnecessary for the people to call investigator Eliason to testify. But if at some point he has to be mentioned or his reports become an issue or he has to testify, then I may have to address the request again if it is renewed at that point. All right, is there anything else at this time that I need to address before we take a break? On behalf of the people, Mr. Edson.
Very briefly, Judge, yesterday the people sought to introduce People's Exhibit 1090B, which was denied by the court. Judge, we are no longer seeking to admit that exhibit. I've marked it as a CTR 26, so it's part of the record.
All right, great. And just so that it's clear, my ruling was that with additional foundation, the report may have been admissible, but that additional foundation was not established apparently because the people have had a change of heart in terms of seeking its admission. Is that right, Mr. Edson?
That is correct, Judge. We understood the court's ruling, and we weren't precluded. We understood the court allowed us, if we so chose, to attempt to establish additional foundation, but at this time, we are not seeking to do so.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything on behalf of the defense that I need to address at this time? Ms. Spengler, do you have anything?
No.
All right, thank you. Enjoy the break. I'll